Good evening, everyone, and thank you again for turning up. It's wonderful to see so many familiar faces and some new ones too. I hope you'll be able to learn about ʻUlu and Niu. I'm sure a lot of you know a lot already, but hopefully tonight there will be some new information that would allow us to return feeling that it has been a worthwhile time being together tonight. So I'd like to acknowledge Manu Maya and Jesse, who are in the film Niu. They're here in the audience. Could you please stand up? Yeah, there's Manu Maya. Yeah, okay, yeah. These two have been amazing warriors for the New Now movement, and I learned so much from them. Manu is a professor at UH West Oahu, but I see when your hands in the dirty soil, digging the soil and planting coconuts, it's very, very heartwarming to see that. What about the other film on ʻUlu? Is there anyone here who's featured in that film that we should acknowledge? Please stand. Anyone? Anyway, let's give them a big hand. They're not here, but we have learned a lot from that film too. Okay, so let me briefly introduce our panelists for tonight. The first at the end over there is Dr. Tusi Avengalio, who is a former director of the University of Hawaii's award-winning Pacific Business Centers program. He is a passionate advocate of weaving traditional wisdom, of regeneration, spirituality, and health with modern technology, economic development, and medical science, centered around the breadfruit and the new as well. He is an associate professor of business and also a ranking ali'i of Polynesia. Could you please give him a big hand? Dr. Tusi. Now, next to him is Indrajit Gusanakera, who is from a long line of indigenous farmers native to southern Sri Lanka. And he has been in Hawaii for over 20 years. He has an unbroken line of connection, several thousand years, to the use, the purpose, and spiritual function of the coconut. Now, I believe that Sri Lanka is the center of Niu globally. That's where you have Niu pervading every aspect of life, even religion as well. And I believe that when Indrajit left Sri Lanka to come to Hawaii, his mother gifted him with a coconut. Isn't that amazing? And he continues to empower young people to work the land and to see Niu as well as ʻUlu as ancestral foods that need reviving so that they could help us with food security in Hawaii. He's also a financial aid officer at the University of Hawaii at West Oahu. Please give him a big hand. Yeah. Dr. Subhashni Raj is an assistant professor of urban planning in the Department of Urban and Regional Planning at the University of Hawaii at Manoa. She began her career in microbiology, and a failed sampling expedition made her realize that poor land use was a much larger threat in the territorial waters of Fiji than climate change at the time. She had a Fulbright scholarship that brought her to Buffalo, New York for her master's degree in urban planning, followed by a Kaufman Fellowship for her doctoral work. Dr. Raj's research focuses on the land, food, water nexus in a changing climate in marginalized communities in the global south and north and looks to translate climate science into policy action. She's our climate change expert tonight. A big hand, please. And right next to me is Cherise Kawi Sana, who's the general farm manager at Mao Organic Farms, and she has been farming for 16 years. She spends her days working the fields of Mao Organic Farms, nestled in the Lua Lei Valley on the west side of Oahu, and one of the largest certified organic farms in Hawaii. Sana started as an intern at the farm through the youth leadership training, a 2-year program for Hawaii's college students, and she holds a BA in Hawaiian Studies from the University of Hawaii at Manoa. A big hand, please. Okay, so thank you very much. Let me begin by asking them if they can share very briefly any thoughts, any reactions that they have to the 2 films that we have just seen. Just something briefly that you think is worth sharing with the audience so we can have this connection to the films and lead us into a deeper discussion. Could we start with Indrajit? He's the head coconut.
It's working? Okay. Aloha, everybody. Mahalo for joining us today, and it means a lot to us that see your interest, being in the movement, and understand the place and the food. And yeah, it was really good to see the way food is being reviewed. Not just the food, also food for spirit and the well-being as individual as well as a society. And I thought the message is well conveyed through the both film. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? What about you, Kawi?
Yeah, aloha everyone. Great to be here. Thank you for inviting me. The 2 films are great. I mean, like every time I watch the Kumu Niu video, I can be on my computer and just need something to lift me up. I'll watch it because both videos, it's about healing, yeah, and understanding our relationships with each other, with land, and with ourselves. And that's a lot of what the work that I do with the farm. We're an organic farm, but we're here to heal our community through the action of growing organic food and getting young people to college and getting them a degree and to be advocates and leaders in their community. So these videos show that there's different pathways for that. And yeah, I'm just amazed.
Thank you. So let's move on to another question. If I could ask Dr. Tusi to talk a little bit about his connection to ʻUlu and Niu, because I'm sure of all of us here, he probably has the one with the most embodied knowledge of these 2 very important plants. So would you like to share a little bit with us your relationship with these 2 food crops over the years?
My relationship? Very intimate. Actually reminds me of reading about a man named Benchley. He becomes a national humorist in his day and age. Probably around the early 1900s. So he went to law school, didn't attend any classes, and took a final. And the question on the final is, discuss the North Atlantic Fishing Treaty negotiations and discuss the point of view of Great Britain and the point of view of the United States, who were dealing with a dilemma at that time. And so the professor was surprised that in 3 minutes or less, he handed in his final. And his final simply said, I know nothing of the North Atlantic Treaty negotiations. I do not know the point of view of Great Britain, neither do I know the point of view of the United States. Therefore, I will represent the point of view of the fish. This is where ʻUlu's at. Until the fish can actually express and point out and apply the technologies to express, so that the fish doesn't have to speak, but we can speak for it. It's through these kinds of creative expressions that the fish is able to talk, that the ʻUlu is able to share. And the Niu can provide refreshment. So this is the benefit of being in both worlds. We cannot be in one or the other. I represent, and I'm deeply rooted in our traditional wisdoms, our spirituality, and our core values, driven by basically aloha and healing. But it's only as good as the weave with modern science, knowledge, and technology. It's through that weave that I think we can share more meaningfully and more effective the gifts of the ʻUlu and the Niu. They are two hearts with one heartbeat.
Thank you, Tusi. And let me ask Dr. Subhashini, she and I are from Fiji, and so it's wonderful to have her on stage. This is the first time we've been together. But tell us a little bit about what Niu and ʻUlu mean to you, having grown up in Fiji, where these two crops are they're just everywhere.
So when we knew that we were going to have a son, we also relocated to the US at the same time from Fiji, which was 3 months before the pandemic. But with me, the things that I brought were all coconut-based products. I brought coconut oil for my baby. I brought a baby mat that was woven from the coconut fronds, because that is traditional. And I brought coconut soap. And I bought all of these things that are embedded in the Niu for my child, not knowing that I was preparing for the pandemic in many ways, because my mother was supposed to come and do a lot of the stuff, but didn't happen. But I had that. So when you ask, what does the coconut mean? It's there with us from the moment we're born. And, till the moment we die, on the coffins are the mats woven from the coconut fronds. Every part of the coconut tree, as a child, you learn is essential. It does everything you need it to. As a child, I played underneath the coconut tree. No liability issues, by the way. So and the breadfruit fed us. As my favorite deep fried dish, because it is just like the potato. Also, my favorite curry, my favorite stew. You can use it ubiquitously. In my freezer, now you'll find packets of frozen coconut that I have carved out of the shell using a screwdriver and hammer, because I don't have those implements in the Jeep. And you will find frozen breadfruit that I have also saved and put. And part of being using what I know is also transforming ways in which I can fast process food that takes a long time to cook. So, an air fryer plus what I've pre-packaged and frozen, and figuring out how to make that on a night when my 3-year-old is yelling, is it nighttime? That was him, by the way. His favorite drink is the coconut, but it costs $10 here, which is insane. So I'm taking him back to Fiji so we can drink as much coconut water as he wants for not that amount of money. So coconut and breadfruit are inherent to who we are. And it struck me watching the movies that this idea of liability, Fiji also has a tourism industry. Hawaii's is much bigger than ours because of the connection to the mainland, but we have not muted our coconut trees.
I think the Fijians are very strong heads. They're not afraid of coconuts falling on them. Something happened in Hawaii and everyone's terrified of a coconut falling on their head. In the rest of the Pacific Islands, we just live with these coconut trees around them and we live in harmony with them. We don't abort them when they're babies because we need them because they feed us. I should say that watching the two movies made me realize that both ʻUlu and Niu, they have hundreds, like a huge ʻUlu tree can have hundreds of breadfruit in one tree. And coconuts, from about 50, 80 of them in one tree. And when you think of the coconut tree, this very tall tree, and in those 50 to 80 coconut trees in them, there's fresh, refreshing nectar in those coconuts. That is such an amazing engineering feat. I dare you to see if you can replicate that. And we take it for granted. But every time I think of all that sweet nectar up there in 50 or so coconut trees, coconuts in one tree, I am totally amazed at that. So just think about that. Let's move right along. And before I forget this question, let me ask about how climate has affected the coconut tree or ʻUlu. And what do you think we might do about this? Because this is a concern. Some of you might have seen this in the news. And we have an expert here, Indrajit, who might be able to talk a little bit about that in case you are willing to help us find a solution to this problem with Niu.
Talking about climate change? Rhinoceros beetle. I mean, exacerbating the issues that we're already facing. I mean, you saw in the film that ʻUlu Niu or Kalailua, what happened to that grove that we witnessed over 4 years of time. The last tree is leaving the place. And this is a grove that mentioned in Captain Vancouver's diaries in 1890s, this area having ʻUlu Nius of coconut groves. And we documented 3 different, very unique, diverse varieties of coconut that were grown in that grove, perhaps the last trees. Now, in addition to that, we are witnessing and experiencing an issue, the coconut rhinoceros beetle since 2013, first detected in Belo military base in Waimanalo in 2013, November, and then December in a joint base, military base in Pearl City. I mean, pretty much a lack of management and the lack of interest and the tech used, adequate use. Issue became a disaster pretty much, what we see, especially on the west side, West Oahu. Its trees are being rapidly attacked and dying. The example, like one particular place in Ka'ala farm, we have been collecting seed from that grove, that farm for over last 3 years. And every time we collect somewhere from 100 seed or 50 to 100 seed. We went there last week, only 1 seed is available, and pretty much the whole trees are gone. This we are talking like a 30, 40 coconut trees. And here we are looking different angles, what is needed to be done, and both defensive ends and offensive end. One angle we are looking at that if we are to lose coconut trees, and estimated like a 50% trees, and we're going to lose what we have now, or are we going to proliferate? We're going to grow more, especially the varieties that found in the areas that been in the isolation for a longer period, like the Waianae and the West Coast, and that has a historic aspect, also historic understanding of the coconut. So one of the answers that we are looking in is collecting all the seed in that area, especially Jesse Keali Nohomoko is in our house, that he's working on the project leading with the Waianae Coast Comprehensive Health Center to document the trees and to collect the seed from the area and to set a large nursery setting so we can ensure that we are growing the trees while they are available.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. I should add that in the Kumu Niu film, you see, the young people planting those coconut seedlings. They're now fairly high, but the sad thing is they're being attacked by the rhinoceros beetle. So in recent months, when we have been going there, it's a real concern for us that efforts to bring back new culture into Hawaii. This is a big problem, the rhinoceros beetle. We won't solve that tonight, but I wanted to move on to another issue, which is that of climate change and how that is affecting, these two root crops in terms of their availability and so on. Would you like to talk to that, Kawi?
Yeah. I think being a mahiai or a farmer, the one thing that we always have to do is to kilo, to observe what's going on in our environment with weather changes and weather patterns. And I've been farming since 2007. I was just an intern, but I've been farming now like as part of the farm staff for about 14 years now. And I can, just being on the ground, I can see weather changing, I can see soil changing, I can see the seasons move. And in terms of the new, we have, Indra just talked about challenges with CRB, and we're one of the farms that is just totally taken out a lot of our trees. In 2000, we planted about 250 trees with Indrajit, and I would say about 80% of them are gone. It's just very sad. But it's something to just learn as a lesson, In farming and agriculture, we have to adapt. We continue to evolve, and we continue to look at our environments and look at technologies of like how we can learn from this. And it's the same with ʻUlu. So we're finding like ʻUlu is just all over the place for us, just as a farmer, especially in Waianae, because can get really hot. So that changes drastically of how we're timing all of our crops. But what we're finding is that these super wet and super dry seasons can be in our favor. So it's something to just really kilo and to like learn and not get mad about, because I feel like sometimes we just quickly get mad because it's out of our control or upset. But to be like, okay, it's gonna be a little bit hotter. We just manage our water a little bit more. Oh, it's a lot more water. Let's just cut back, and not just stick to this schedule of like what we have to do. So it's a lot of understanding of like our time and place. And I can't give you a really straight answer to that. And it's just because every year is changing, I feel, which is concerning that you can see the hotter seasons be longer or the wet seasons being longer. And but I think it gives us an opportunity to really think at different solutions of how to feed ourselves. Because CRB has attacked our coconuts on the farm doesn't mean we're gonna stop growing coconuts. We're gonna keep going, we're gonna keep trying, and we're gonna find ways of creating new nurseries so that we have these plants available for us, and then asking our Polynesian cousins if we need help, because that's what we should do. Oceania is a big country. We're not separated. We just think we are because there's water between us, but we really are one people, and we have to rely on our cousins and our outside sisters and brothers to face this problem and to move on. you know?
Thank you so much for that. Subhashini, would you like to add?
Yes, it's not an easy one, and it's because it's not just a question of what is the impact, it's also a question of what is valued. So the problem and solution is of value. And by that I mean, so the other 14 Pacific Island countries have a regional governance formation. So the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat and its regional bodies. And because the Pacific Island countries value coconut, value breadfruit, ʻUlu, and value kalo, we have spent decades studying the genetics of these species that are in our islands. We have a seed bank. We have a genetic research lab that's based in the Pacific. We have resources that we have, because we value these crops, we have put towards understanding how to ensure their longevity and sustainability in light of the changing climate. So new drought-tolerant species of coconuts, kalo, and so forth are being developed and prototyped and studied. And so there's a plan. And it's because we value these resources, right? So even if it were shared with Hawaii, there's the question of value. And that systematic valuation has to happen at the state and local government level too. Can't just be Indigenous Hawaiians, Native Hawaiians carrying that burden, because you'll continue to have these issues because CRB was not seen as a threat to a crop that is of value, right? So the problem and the solution is of value. We have to change that too at the state and local government level. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. I want to ask Dr. Tusi, who is very much involved in the breadfruit movement, and I think just about every year he and his colleagues host a summit on breadfruit. Could you tell us a little bit about the movement? Because I think not many people are so aware of that. And what do you see as some of the challenges the movement faces in terms of bringing back breadfruit into the diet of Pacific Islanders?
I think one word can probably best embrace all the aspects: survival. Did it ever occur to you to think about how does an atoll with only breadfruit and niu sustain a population in the middle of nowhere for over 1,000 years? There are no rivers, there are no streams, there are no lakes. I think many of our solutions have already been solved. We just need to better understand them and modernize them in some way. Let me give you an example. The primary water source on islands is the Niu. Simple. What is the primary water source here in this state? For example, you have a centralized water system. It's driven by electricity. So in a major disaster, a centralized system simply means if the main center goes down, the whole island goes down. There's no water. For the remote areas, they may not be able to fix this thing for a month or longer. What is going to be your source of water? Our ancestors have showed us. World War II has shown the innovation of using coconut water for surgery for combat wounded soldiers, etc., etc., etc. I don't want to go into all the details because there are a tremendous amount of details. If you don't have an alternative source of water, then what? Let me give you another dimension to think about. over 90% of food and possibly water that is consumed are shipped in. They're loaded in your warehouses, and in an emergency, you go to the store. Well, guess where all of those warehouses are at? At the airport. What is that near sea level? So the very source of where your food is going to come from is going to get hammered. And if the disaster impacts the power and the water, we've got a real serious situation. So in anticipation of that, why is the Niu so important? Simple. Without water, nothing is going to live. However, let's learn from the ancestors. There's a protocol. There are also, by the way, there's different varieties of corn, there's different varieties of potatoes, there are also different varieties of coconuts. There's a certain variety called the Niu vai. All the Polynesian voyagers planted this. And simply, a Niu vai means new with water. The nut is so big that it can fit a small chicken in it. So it holds a lot of water. Every family had a minimum of 10 Niu vai for every family household. And so the Niu vai has a protocol that is taught through the ancestors, so you have constant water. So this is the place in the middle of nowhere with no centralized water system or anything else. But we have a centralized water system. If you can plant Niu vai in your home, in your backyard, and then plant ʻUlu. Why is ʻUlu such an important food security? Because nothing will grow with the level of salinity within 10 feet or 10 yards of the ocean, but ʻUlu can. So you've seen some places where you've seen breadfruit. Some of it is as close as 10 feet. That means food can be produced, you can eat, you can live, you can survive. When you take something off a shelf in the store, it's not going to grow back. But when you pick ʻUlu, it will grow back. It's simple. If you have a yard, plant Niu, plant ʻUlu. Learn how to cultivate both. Learn how to cook with it. We notice that children, especially ones who've grown up with McDonald's. I mean, I was in the South Pacific just last couple weeks ago and went to a traditional feast, and I heard the little kids say, "Ooh, what's that?" It was ʻUlu from the umu. And they wanted bread, hamburgers or something. You know, it's really kind of simple. You convert breadfruit into breadfruit flour. Breadfruit flour makes excellent buns, pizza crust. You change the ingredients of what the kids love to eat, and they'll eat it. And you know, it's as simple as that. Well, anyway, those are just a couple of things that we've been working with Breadfruit Summits for the past 10 years, bringing in knowledge from all over the world.
Thank you so much, Tusi. Now, unfortunately, our time is almost up, but I'm going to ask the panelists one final question. Very briefly, how do you think the audience, members of the audience, might be able to become engaged in this movement to bring back ʻUlu and Niu into our diet in Hawaii? Any simple one thing that you would like to suggest? We'll start with Kawi and move our way over there.
I think that one of the most simplest ways is to support your local farmer that supplies Niu and ʻUlu, and find a neighbor. Indrajit talks about this sometimes. It's like, just try to eat it once a day. Like with Niu, it's so hard because sometimes it's not available all the time, but making that intention, that commitment to just even eat freshly grated coconut, you know, or to drink the water, to intentionalize that, because then you start to create this pathway of finding ways to get it done.
Yamao Farms is where I go to every Saturday to look for ʻUlu and Niu. And a lot of the time, they aren't available. And it's very sad, very tragic. Taro also is very hard to get. I was lucky today I got those two things up there, which I'm going to enjoy for the week, my ʻUlu and Niu. But I wish these things were more readily available. They are not, even at a farmer's market. But I'm so grateful to Mao Farms for the wonderful work that they are doing. So yes, please support Mao Farms. Moving right along to Subhashini. One thing you might want to share with the audience, maybe related to climate change, since that's your area of expertise.
Hold your politicians accountable, because the work they're doing, it's not going to go anywhere if they don't have the support at the state and local city and county level to make those changes be permanent. It's in the land use code. You can't just grow new and breadfruit anywhere you want to. So hold your politicians accountable, ask them questions they might not know, but ask them, yes.
Thank you. Next.
Yeah, I mean, eating ʻUlu and Niu or getting engaged with that cycle, you can start anywhere. You can start buying the ʻUlu from the market or finding the neighbor or who has a ʻUlu tree or going knocking on their door. But the place we like to see is, in order to get there, we have to have enough trees growing, enough food producing trees. If you have a room to grow ʻUlu and Niu, they don't need any specialized water. You can use your bathroom or the laundry room or the just water runoff to go water and fertilize it. Find the place to grow ʻUlu and Niu. Even you don't own the land, you work for a place, and you have a place that you can support somebody else's plant or even your workplace. And Auntie Manu has a term for this, right? Pono pompo pono place, for peace, and the right tree planting in the right place. Find that right place, and we are available for if you're looking for the right coconut tree, right Niu to be planted. We always have a new nursery going through and the plants available. All the trees we grow is freely available to the community in any given time. Mahalo.
Thank you. So if you would like to take a coconut seedling to plant in your yard for free, even the dwarf kind, that's the man to see. And also Manu Maya is here as well. So talk to them afterwards. And Dr. Tusi, you have the final word for tonight. Anything you'd like to share?
Well, first of all, I'm really, really, really excited with what Manu's doing with Niu. Renal disease and diabetes is hit the entire region like an epidemic. What people don't know, or most people, is that Niu, Vai, the water, is excellent for your kidneys. In fact, I take it a lot. I used to be, 15 years ago, 380 pounds. I'm 280 right now. And I had to, basically, as a shift in diet. By the way, also, breadfruit is low glycemic. It's also gluten-free. It's also, Professor Susan Murch of Canada did an analysis of protein. It has more protein among all the vegetables and fruits on the earth. You ever wonder why Samoans, Tongans, and Fijians were so massive? And we don't drink milk. ʻUlu. Yeah, and so finding the opportunity. By the way, from an economic perspective, the gluten-free health market is in the billions. But it takes some kind of a movement or leadership or commercial enterprise. The issue is supply. If we can we need a minimum of 50,000 tons to make it work in a very good way for everybody. So anyway, something to think about. Appreciate your interest.
Thank you so much, Tusi. So, ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of a wonderful time together tonight. Again, I want to thank you all for turning up. It's so wonderful to see such interest in ʻUlu and Niu. And I know that you are allies in this effort to bring these two very important food crops back into our lives. So thank you so much for turning up. I want to thank the panelists, to Kawi, Subhashni, Indrajit, and Dr. Tusi. I want to thank the organizers and everyone who have worked so hard to put this wonderful event together. So one final round of applause and let's go home. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.